What kind of wild world does your 16-year-old about to turn 17 drag a 23-year-old convicted murderer? We just keep on inviting. Literally just met the guy. He just keeps getting invited to all the family events. He's dragging the girl around all over the place. Is using his connections to gain access to houses where he's holding raves. There's $7,000 worth of damage. No, 7,000 pounds worth of damage. They keep bringing this guy around. Sarah's like, I'm like his second mother. You don't even know that guy. How have you had a chance to be his second mother? He's dating this Beatrice for about 10 months. And in that time, Andrew sidles up to him and goes, could I borrow $10,000 because my girlfriend is kind of in a sticky situation. She's still living with her fiance in New York City. Would that be okay if I borrow $10,000? I'm not going to be able to pay it back. I'm kind of tied up with the $7.5 million spending on renovating my second home, so I can't pay back this $10,000 loan. But if you could just do me a solid. Like, what world is this? Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Denise. Today we are going to keep going in Entitled. That's the book about Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew. You'll recall that in yesterday's reading, we were going to do a big review, but just to remind you where we're at, Andrew was supposed to retire from the Navy in 1999. He has completed everything he's capable of doing, and at this point in his career, he would have been given command of a ship, but he's not capable of it. So they've been trying to sort of casting about what should we do next with him. And he was supposed to retire, but then he decided to sign up for another 14 years, which caused some degree of panic because what are we supposed to do with this guy? He can't progress in the typical way, but he's here and the royal family wanted him there because of the structure and the schedule that it would have given him. So then they decided to put him at the head of British exports. I'm not 100% certain how that had to do with the Navy, other than he was meeting with other governments and they would be looking at British made goods, like I think at one point it was like helicopters or something. So that makes sense. So it wasn't just like all British made goods, but I think military exports. Anyway, not surprisingly, he doesn't even try. He doesn't take the job seriously. He walks in acting like he knows everything about everything, but he refuses to be briefed. He has no attention span to be told, okay, so this is our goal. This is what we're trying to get done. He would go in and undermine the process completely. And it just was something where everybody was feeling taxed having to have him around because he didn't want to do the job. He was clear he didn't want to do the job. And so it sort of always felt like play acting. Wherever they took him to do his job, it was obvious he was just sort of hanging around for the trips and things like that. We also discussed that he is enormously wasteful with money, specifically on how he uses it for travel. So whenever there'd be an opportunity for him to go somewhere that he could have easily taken a train or a scheduled flight, he refuses to use commercial flights. He's constantly going on the private jets. And it's to a shocking degree. I mean, we were talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted because he wants to take a private plane. And sometimes he would book private planes that were enormously too big for his party. One time he had 8 people book a 12-person flight at an enormous expense. I mean, he's just not careful whatsoever. It doesn't even enter his mind that he ought to be careful with the taxpayer money. It's just like, well, if it's available to me. So it's very frustrating to hear how wasteful he was. I need to do a review on the recent interview that Prince William had, but he said a line that I thought was specifically heartening. And he said that one of his goals for his son is to make his son proud of the job that they do.
I want to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do. I hope we don't go back to some of the practices in the past that Harry and I had to grow up in. And I'll do everything I can to make sure we don't regress in that situation.
It sounds like the monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda.
This echoes exactly what I said a couple episodes back about the way that the monarchy has got to reinvigorate their upcoming generations. Like, this is a huge job, an enormous privilege, quite thrilling. But without purpose injected into the role, it is kind of dumb. It would feel stupid. It would be easy to undermine the amazing opportunity you have to make a difference in people's lives. And William was saying, this is a very important job. It can be, and I want my son to feel the pride of that. But that does mean that some changes have to be made, and I'm ready to make them. So encouraged to hear that, because I thought that's exactly what I think that they should do. It isn't that the monarchy isn't important. It's just that it's been made unimportant by frivolous tasks and general foolishness. And the people who have played those roles before have not been taught to be proud of the job, because sometimes there isn't much to be proud in the work. Sometimes there is, for sure. They do a lot of work with charities, but sometimes it's just frivolous and stupid. And William wants to change that, and I just thought what he said was really important. So with that in mind, though, we're still in this generation with Andrew where it's mostly cover up all of his mistakes, and it's pretty much too late to help him feel pride for his work because he was not taught to feel proud about it. So we can't teach this old dog new tricks, basically. And we're going to keep going in this section. This subtitle under special representatives is that a surfboard you've packed? In 2002, Andrew had met Louise McBain at an exhibition at the Serpentine Gallery in London and soon became a regular nocturnal visitor to her Holland Park home, in a relationship that was to last several years. Divorced from a Canadian millionaire, John McBain, who had made his money setting up Auto Trader, she'd established herself on the British art scene as an equal in wealth and influence to Charles Saatchi. Worth an estimated $250 million and named as the 25th richest woman in the world by the Sunday Times, she'd been chief executive of Phillips Dupuy, a London auction house, owned by her then-boyfriend, Simon Dupuy. In spring 2004, Andrew invited her to a gala dinner at Kensington Palace. Guests were instructed to arrive at 7 o'clock, but she didn't get there until 3 hours later. According to a friend, McBain went ballistic, demanding to be driven straight through the security. However, as she made her entrance, she discovered that in her absence, someone else had been seated next to Andrew. McBain told the woman to move. Andrew did not appear to mind, as one of his closest aides explained. He's always gone for dominant, controlling women. It stems from his upbringing. His life has always been full of strong mother figures. His grandmother, his mother, his nannies. And Louise is a very glamorous, strong woman. In June, the Duke flew to the States for various official engagements before flying in McBain's private jet to her home, Ladue, on Long Island, just 15 minutes from the U.S. Open golf tournament, which was the public purpose of his visit. She was struck by one particular piece of luggage that, she assumed, confirmed her royal lover's sporting prowess. "Is that a surfboard you've packed?" she asked. "No," came the embarrassed response. "It's an ironing board. We never know what circumstances we'll find when we travel. We have to be prepared for any eventuality." "I think there's an ironing board at your host's house. Who travels with their ironing board?" This is what I mean when I tell you that he does seem to be cripplingly naive. In anticipation of his arrival, McBain had replanted the trees lining her sweeping drive, had all the exterior woodwork on the house and pool areas freshly painted, and in an attempt to bond with her lover, had taken golf lessons. She told a close friend that being with him would change her life and her children's lives. She provided him with massages from her resident masseur and a daily Pilates session with a professional instructor. They watched The Lord of the Rings in the mansion's private cinema, took walks along the beach, and one night toasted marshmallows in the moonlight after a groundsman had set up a bonfire on the sand. By the end of that week, she was head over heels in love and in introducing Andrew to friends as her boyfriend. But in October 2005, after one final night of passion at her house in Holland Park, he ended their affair. Only his silence in the months that followed made her realize her dream was over. You kind of have to feel sorry for her, going through all that trouble repainting her house and planting the trees and having her little bonfire and her little marshmallows. I mean, I kind of feel bad for her. I mean, yeah, she is kind of forceful, so I don't know what that would have meant in real life. Like, is she a bitch? You know what I mean? Like, kind of seems like she went through life acting like people owed her something, arriving 3 hours late to a party and then telling the guest sitting next to him to move. That's pretty catty behavior, but everyone's human, and you have to look at her little attempts to make cozy times for him and her desperate attempt to have a relationship with him, and she appears to have really liked him against all odds. And, he shouldn't have done her like that, just not showing up. But see, that's how he is. He doesn't care. He had his fun, and he gets bored so easily, Okay, let's talk about Royal Lodge, because of course that's where he lives now, but how did he get his hands on that? In March 2002, the Queen Mother, previously the Duchess of York, had died aged 101. Her home since 1936 had been Royal Lodge, part of the Crown Estate, and a new occupant was sought. Despite already having Sunninghill, Andrew became the new tenant. Some said Prince Edward had had his eyes on it. Originally, it had been thought the Duke inherited the mansion from his grandmother, but it emerged that he bought it. The full price for the 75-year lease remains secret, but land registry documents include a premium payment by him of $1 million, with no other bidders sought, and on a peppercorn rent in return for restoring the lodge. With the property valued at $20 million, the estimated market rent would be £260,000 a year. Labour MP Ian Davidson described the sale as extremely dubious and called for an inquiry. We can't have any suggestion of members of the royal family engaging in the property equivalent of insider trading if that means the taxpayers losing money, he said. The National Audit Office report admitted the Crown Estate could have offered up the lease option to the wider market, but did not because of the sensitive location and security concerns. Though there had been a house on the site of Royal Lodge since the 17th century, it had been used as a hunting lodge. The current Grade II listed building dates mostly from the 1840s. Set in almost 100 acres of grounds in Windsor Great Park and about 3 miles from Windsor Castle, it has 30 rooms, including 7 bedrooms and a salon measuring 48 feet by 30. The building had hardly been touched since the 1930s, so a 3-year major renovation began, which had cost Andrew up to $7.5 million and required him to take out a mortgage against Sunninghill. The house was painted white from pink, and a swimming pool, driving range, and golf course added. What? There were further delays when it was discovered that several of the builders had criminal records and half of the 28-strong workforce had to be replaced. Andrew eventually moved in to the home in March 2005. Where did he get $7.5 million for a renovation, I ask you? I mean, I know he had to take a mortgage out on the other house, but what is this about adding in a swimming pool, a driving range, and a golf course? How much property would you need? I mean, I know it sits on a big piece of property, but what an enormous development. Where did he get $7.5 million? It's a fairy tale to believe that the royals are millionaire, billionaire sets. They have access to all the millionaires and the billionaires, but $7.5 million? He doesn't have that money. But to continue on with just the jaw-droppers, also moving in was the Duchess of York, for whom her ex-husband had provided a luxurious 4-bedroom apartment, and from where she continues to run her office in the billiards room. "You couldn't shift her with dynamite," said one family friend. "Each time she says she's gone, she's back almost immediately." She's just the worst. I mean, move on. Of course, she can't move on because she cannot allow him to remarry. Then she loses even more of her standing. If he ever gets a second wife, there she goes. She'll just be a footnote, left in the dustbins of history. We can't have that. But what kind of ex-wife literally is over there crouching on your property? But also, what kind of an emotional cripple allows it? Why is Andrew letting her always come, "Can I camp out here? Oh, you got a new house. Let me go find my room." Now, this next chapter is entitled Paolo Liuzzo. Paolo is going to be Beatrice's new boyfriend. In July 2005, while enjoying their annual 2-week stay at Patty McNally's villa in the south of France, the Duchess and her family were joined by 23-year-old Paolo Liuzzo, her teenage daughter Beatrice's new boyfriend, whom she had met a fortnight before. Okay, just let that sentence sink in. Beatrice is a teenager, underage. She is dating a 23-year-old guy. Literally met him 2 weeks ago, and he's joining the family for the traditional vacay. Stop the press. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this scenario would be wild in a normal person's life. Like, what is the 23-year-old boyfriend doing here? Our daughter is 15, or however old she is. And we just met him 2 weeks. Why is he here? Like, that would be the family drama. That is like hardly a blip on these people's radar. Paolo had a checkered past, having been charged with manslaughter after killing another student in a fight. The plot thickens. Driving from Geneva, he brought with him some friends who proceeded to have a good time. Paolo spent 30,000 euros one evening entertaining the party at Club 55 in Saint-Tropez. The Duchess then invited him to join her and her 2 daughters a month later, taking a holiday at Richard Branson's safari ranch in South Africa in between, at Round Hill, an exclusive resort of villas in Jamaica. Paolo later sold an account of his 2 trips to a newspaper, claiming the Duchess had encouraged his relationship with Beatrice and exposed her daughter to people who took drugs, including cannabis, much to the Queen's concern. You guys, what in the world is Fergie doing having this boy around the daughter who's 23 years old, way older than her, and he's been charged with manslaughter? Where are the boundaries for young Beatrice? Well, it was perhaps a topic of conversation at Balmoral later that month when Sarah was invited, for the first time since her divorce, to join the royal family on their Scottish holiday, partly so she could join in celebrations for Beatrice's 17th birthday, and partly to keep her on side, a long-term strategy. The visit was not an unqualified success. According to a highly placed source, the Queen was driven to distraction by her daughter-in-law continually spouting New Age mumbo-jumbo.
Take it very seriously. Yeah. Joy. And finding joy. And that's why I am a storyteller. So everything is fascinating.
From Balmoral, it was off to Sado Grande to stay at a luxurious holiday and sports complex, where in return for very little, a visit to a polo match perhaps, she's given use of a rather grand villa for herself, her children, and her entourage. Beatrice's new boyfriend, Paolo, was proving to be trouble. In November 2005, a property developer friend of the Duchess had lent him her 7-floor mansion, awaiting refurbishment in Eaton Square, to hold raves for some 400 people, charging £25 a head. The owner had to spend £7,000 cleaning the house afterwards. Sarah stayed loyal to her daughter's boyfriend, calling herself his second mother and accompanying the young couple as they drank and partied. The royal family were less supportive. In May 2006, on the orders of the Queen, Beatrice ended the relationship. Paolo revealed that every New Year, Andrew had gone through a 10-day cleansing process during which he was massaged with oils to detoxify him. That one of Andrew's lovers, a Norwegian, was once challenged as an intruder in the grounds of Buckingham Palace. That another lover was a half-time model. That Andrew's solution to the squirrel problem at Royal Lodge had been to ask his PPOs to shoot them. And that Bea had told him, "Daddy loves Mummy more than Mummy loves Daddy, but Mummy lives for her title, and she loses her title if Daddy remarries." Paolo admitted that for 10 months he dated Beatrice. He and the Duke talked mostly about, quote, golf and helicopters. The other topic he talked about was Bea's driving lessons. One evening he got out a manual and was telling her how to enter and yield at roundabouts. Went on for a bloody hour. Paolo also said the Duchess authorized him to use the York's business-only airway, EOS, which had just launched, and gave them free flights, telling him when he needed a flight, "Talk to my assistant, they'll sort it out." Paolo lent Andrew $10,000. Paolo claimed the full debt was never settled, to pay for removal men to move one of the Duke's girlfriends, Angie Everhart, out of the New York apartment she shared with her then-fiancé. Afterwards, Paolo said that he was asked to kneel in the drawing room of their Windsor mansion for a mock knighting ceremony. Impersonating the Queen, the Duchess of York handed him a new nickname, Sir Fix-It. Okay. Everything Paolo's saying is just wild to me. Why have they let this interloper into their realm? And then, of course, he's going to go and sell his stories to the tabloids as soon as he gets a chance. And he would have had multiple chances to see what weirdos this lot really is. What kind of world are we living in when the 16-year-old about to turn 17 drags in a 23-year-old loser who has been charged with manslaughter? And we just keep on inviting. Literally just met the guy. He just keeps getting invited to all the family events. He's dragging the girl around all over the place. He's using his connections to gain access to houses where he's holding raves. There's $7,000 worth of damage. No, 7,000 pounds worth of damage. They keep bringing this guy around. Sarah's like, "I'm like his second mother." You don't even know that guy. How have you had a chance to be his second mother? He's dating this Beatrice for about 10 months. And in that time, Andrew sidles up to him and goes, "Could I borrow $10,000 because my girlfriend is kind of in a sticky situation. She's still living with her fiance in New York City. Would that be okay if I borrow $10,000? I'm not going to be able to pay it back. I'm kind of tied up with the $7.5 million I'm spending on renovating my second home. So I can't pay back this $10,000 loan. But if you could just do me a solid." Like, what world is this? This is wild. This is so crazy. Why are we asking the 23-year-old for a $10,000 loan to help our girlfriend move out of her apartment with her fiance? The insanity knows no bounds. Okay, but let's talk about that girlfriend that he's with, this Angie Everhart. Because the book says that Angie Everhart, born in 1969, had made her acting debut with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Last Action Hero in 1993, and gone on to star in a number of films, many more sexually explicit than anything Koo Stark had ever appeared in. In February 2000, she had been the cover nude in Playboy and had been linked with a number of high-profile figures. In December 1996, she married George Hamilton's son Ashley, divorcing him 4 months later. It was George Hamilton who had fixed up the initial meeting with Andrew, telling his daughter-in-law, he likes redheads, and he has a wish list of girls he'd like to meet while he's in town, and you're on it. They met the next day, and it was a success. She described him as lovely, finding it charming that he had never had to put away his own groceries. The relationship, which probably began in 2003, has supposedly continued to this day, with claims that they speak weekly, if not daily, though its precise nature is unclear. Just because I've been linked romantically with him in the past, it doesn't mean I'm still going to bed with him, she maintained. Whether I am or not is nobody's business but ours. Okay. But it's not exactly like anyone would want to jump into the bed with him of recent years. I know everyone's like, he was such a looker back in his day. Well, them days has passed. But I just don't understand why he wants to be with some of these women who are just, like, bottom feeders. What do you want to be with some girl who's been in all these, like, sexually explicit films and, like, throwing her body all over the cover of Playboy? It's like, why, though? I think the reality is that Prince or not, he can't have any woman in the world. A more respectable person wouldn't have him. Because, I mean, you look at some of the people who are a little bit more respectable, they eventually come to the conclusion that they are not willing to give up what they have for him. And some of these other sad characters like this Angie Everhart, I mean, apparently she didn't have much more going for her than to be moved out of the apartment she shares with her fiancé by some prince who comes around when he feels like it. I mean, poor Angie, quite frankly, that she thinks so little of herself, that a title from a man who is not worthy of the title would mean so much to her that she would link herself to him for all the rest of her life. Never made an honest woman out of her, you know, but he's willing to come sniffing around her when he gets a chance to do so. The whole thing is sordid. Okay, let's keep going. This sub-chapter is called A Knight of the Garter. Even though he had left the Navy, Andrew continued to receive honorary appointments. In February 2004, he had been made an honorary captain, and in 2006 was appointed Commodore-in-Chief of the Fleet Air Arm. In June of that year, he and Prince Edward were made Knights of the Garter, with the Duchess, at her first official royal appearance in 14 years, and their daughters in attendance. That month, he was asked to represent the British monarchy at King Bhumibol's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in Bangkok. Andrew had fixed a holiday in Vietnam prior to the engagement, so requested a private jet to bring his entourage. The party established themselves at the Grand Hyatt Erawan, where Andrew's room service demands soon came to the attention of Andrew McGregor Marshall, Reuter's Thailand correspondent, who had friends and connections in the hotel. Quote, during his short stay, more than 40 women were brought to his room.
40.
Often, as soon as one left, another would arrive. Hotel staff were amazed. They're used to foreigners bringing girls to their rooms, but more than 10 a day were going to Andrew's room. And this was all juggled amid official engagements. Y'all, he must be riddled with disease. 40 women were brought to his room? I mean, what? Remember when Fergie said that one time she was with him and he was having an orgy with like 23 women? I don't think she was participating, but she was like there and present when it happened. And I was like, come now, you must be exaggerating. You know, this must just be some hyperbole because you want to point out that he's a wretch. I believe Fergie was telling us the truth. Marshall added, explaining their provenance, the story simply came up in conversation because they were genuinely amazed by it. While Andrew was there, a son of Prince Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalif of Bahrain was also in Bangkok, staying at the Oriental Hotel. Once each heard they were both in town, the two princes began sending their favorite girls to each other as a friendly gesture. What world is this, where the two princes are sending each other their favorite women? This sounds like some kind of biblical apocalypse. Ian Proud, serving in the embassy at the time, hosted Andrew on 4 occasions, twice on official business and twice private visits, and he got to know him well. He thought Thai hospitality staff were unlikely to have been amazed when it came to stories of bacchanalian exploits. Royals putting it about, given Thailand's feudal, stratified society and history of polygamy or polyamorous men, suggests that this would have been seen as entirely commonplace and as to be expected. Indeed, they might have been surprised had he been otherwise. Proud remembers on the first official visit in early 2005, after the Indian Ocean tsunami, Andrew being introduced to the political section. The Duke showed no interest in the male diplomats, nor the 3 older Thai female members of staff, preferring to focus on Lois Abbott, an attractive blonde in her 30s. One of her colleagues had just been recalled, having been arrested on a plane, high on a mix of whiskey and antidepressants, abusing passengers. Andrew was thrilled by the story. "I once knew a Royal Navy officer who was court-martialed for grabbing Margaret Thatcher's arse," he said. Proud had heard stories about Andrew belittling staff by making jokes and pulling pranks, including ordering that a junior diplomat's place setting and chair be removed at the resident dinner, when that officer briefly stepped out of the room. He concluded that it was a coping mechanism because the Duke did not have anything interesting to offer to a conversation. The jokes and general narcissism were a protective layer Andrew hid behind. They stopped him being exposed as a bit thick and boring during open-ended conversation. "I heard of him once boring guests virtually to tears with a serious tale about the failings of the traffic light system in Westminster," said Proud. Sounds a bit like that conversation he was having with Bea about going in and out of traffic circles. But is something wrong with him? Like, legitimately. Yesterday we were reading about a reporter who followed him on his visit to China when he was trying to set up that F1 racing track. And this reporter believed that he was not very intelligent, like something was legit wrong. And you have to ask yourself, is something legitimately wrong? Because what kind of a man in his 40s would, at this point in his life, have only the failings of the traffic light system in Westminster to discuss at dinner? I mean, that feels like what a child would do, thinking that grown-ups must like this sort of talk, you know. On his second visit, Andrew refused an invitation to stay at the residence in favor of the presidential suite at the Hyatt. This required a bit of negotiation, as other royal parties also wanted to book it. Not least because Spaso, the dance club in the basement, was one of the Duke's favorite pickup joints. Proud recalls Andrew also having a favored companion, a high society Thai lady, who is in another relationship, and that she accompanied the Duke to his next destination, Chiang Mai. They went together in the ceremonial cavalcade to Bangkok airport and also returned together from the city of Chiang Mai. It caused embarrassment because she stayed in his official car when he went back to the Hyatt to collect his team before leaving Thailand. After he had gone up to his room, the lady waited in the reception area for a short while until her boyfriend came to collect her. The lover was Sonia Cowling, a half-Thai model, actress, and television personality, who later produced and hosted Thailand's Next Top Model. Born in 1974, she had gone to school in England before studying German at the University College London and business at the European Business School. In 1999, she had been voted Thailand's sexiest woman by FHM, second in Asia, and 3 years later won Best Actress in a leading role at the TV Gold Awards, the Thai Television Awards, for her appearance in the series Maya. Andrew returned privately twice more to see her. Andrew's driver would often gossip about his important guest, revealing it was not just women who would be invited to party with the Duke. He also had a thing for effeminate young men in their 20s. What? I mean, he is in Thailand. And of course, many chapters ago, we read about Fergie walking in on him with other men from the Navy, and the necessity she felt to take multiple AIDS tests, though she denied it later, once it became a problem for her that she'd said it out loud. What is going on with Andrew? But you know, it's like at a certain point, it's like, if a person is going to give themselves over to a debauched mind, and they've partied all they can with all the women in the world, I mean, at a certain point, you got to up the ante. You know, it's not exciting anymore. You're going to have to try something else, you know. So I guess effeminate young men in their 20s is where he's going to start veering off the path. Well, unfortunately, that's where we have to end today. I'm sorry for the shorter episode. I have a couple of things on my schedule today that I don't typically have to get to. So I've got to get going, but thank you guys so much for listening. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for another episode. I am watching all the stuff with Meghan Markle in Paris, and I cannot wait for Friday to roll around so we can talk about those things. There's so many things that have happened this week that we need to discuss. I wish that I had time for a midweek episode. Perhaps I will. we'll see. But they're just, I don't feel like I can wait till Friday to talk about the stuff we're seeing with Meghan. It's just wild to me. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Talk to you soon, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.